A 17-year-old girl, barefoot, no money, no bag, no shoes, running through the streets of Lagos at 10:30 at night. She had no direction, no plan, no one to call. She had just escaped a compound full of young girls who had been sold, the same way she had been sold by the people who were supposed to protect her. And the person who sold her was not a stranger, was not a criminal she had met on the street. It was the woman her father called her mother. Her stepmother had smiled at her, packed her into a bus, handed her to a stranger, collected money, and gone home to cook dinner. But here is what that woman did not know. God was watching. And the same night Amara ran barefoot through Lagos with nothing, everything began to change. To understand how she got there, we need to go back. All the way back to where this nightmare began. Amara Okafor was 17 years old and the kind of girl who made teachers smile without trying. She was sharp, curious, top 5 in her class without breaking a sweat. She had a laugh that came easily and a dream she held quietly. She wanted to be a nurse. Her mother, Ada, had squeezed her hand once and said, "Then that's what you'll be." And Amara had believed her. Then Ada died. Sudden illness, 2 months from diagnosis to burial. Amara was 15. She cried until her body had nothing left to give. Her father, Mr. Emeka Okafor, cried too, or so she thought. Because 6 months after the burial, not a year, not even close to a year, her father walked through the front door with a woman named Oluchi and a suitcase that was not visiting. Oluchi was loud-perfumed, wide-hipped, and had a smile that worked hard but never quite reached her eyes. Behind her was a teenage girl roughly Amara's age, dragging a pink box on wheels and looking like she had already decided she owned the place. Amara's father stood in the doorway and said, without looking at his daughter, "This is Madame Oluchi. She is going to be your new mother. And this is Tochi, her daughter. Treat them well." Amara opened her mouth. "Daddy, go and bring them water." That was it. That was the entire conversation. The door to her father's heart had not just closed, it had been locked, bolted, and the key thrown somewhere Amara would never find. She brought the water. She smiled at the woman who had replaced her mother, and she told herself it would be okay. It would not be okay. If you are new here, welcome to Tales by Alicia, where every story is real, raw, and worth your time. Subscribe right now and hit the like button because this story is only getting started, and trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Oluchi moved through that house like a woman who had been waiting her whole life to own something. By day 2, not week 2, not month 2, day 2, she had toured every room with the energy of a landlord inspecting a new property. She stood outside Amara's bedroom door, tilted her head, and called her daughter. "Tochi, do you like this room?" Tochi, who had not lifted a single finger since she arrived, looked up from her nails. "It's fine." "It's yours then." Oluchi pushed the door fully. Then she turned to Amara. "Go and pack your things. You'll be sleeping in the kitchen from now on." Amara's jaw dropped. The kitchen? Is there an echo in this house? The kitchen. There's space near the back wall. You can put a mat there. Amara ran to her father. She explained everything, the room, the mat, the kitchen floor. She waited. Her father listened with his arms crossed, face completely unreadable, and then he said, "Your stepmother is only trying to correct you. Don't be stubborn." She moved into the kitchen that night, and from that moment, the rules came fast and they came hard. Wake up at 5 every morning, sweep the compound, scrub the bathrooms, mop the sitting room, wash everyone's clothes by hand, cook breakfast, then and only then get ready for school, usually with about 10 minutes to spare before the bus came. Tochi, meanwhile, woke up at 8, padded into the kitchen in fluffy slippers, complained that the tea was not hot enough, went back to watch television. The injustice of it was almost artistic. One Saturday, Amara spent 2 full hours mopping the ground floor until it shone like a mirror. She wrung out the mop, wiped her forehead, and stepped back to admire her work. Tochi walked in from outside, shoes caked in red laterite mud, and strolled across the entire floor without removing them. "Tochi," Amara gasped, "I just finished mopping." "Then mop it again," Tochi said without turning around, and disappeared into Amara's room. Amara mopped the floor again. Food was its own kind of warfare. Amara cooked every meal: egusi, ofe onugbu, stew, rice, beans, and watched Oluchi and Tochi eat first. Her father ate quietly, and then she was handed whatever was left. On days when the food finished, she didn't eat. Once, she tried to serve herself before they were done, and Oluchi grabbed her wrist so hard it left a mark.
Anuofia, Oluchi hissed. You want to eat before the owners of the house. Her father was at the table. He looked at his plate and continued eating. Amara stopped reporting after a while. What was the point? Her father had built himself a wall of willful blindness, and behind that wall lived a man she no longer recognized. School saved Amara's life. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly, consistently, the way a small fire keeps a person warm through a long, cold night. She was brilliant, and everyone knew it. Teachers called on her first. Her grades stayed high, no matter what was happening at home. She had a quiet determination that most girls her age hadn't found yet, the kind that comes not from confidence, but from having nothing else left to hold on to. She wanted to be a nurse. Her mother had said, then that's what you'll be, and Amara had decided that no one, not Oluchi, not Tochi, not her father's silence, was going to take that from her. That dream was the one thing Oluchi could not touch. Until she found something else to use. His name was Ekene, 24 years old, worked at a small architecture firm in town. He had noticed Amara one afternoon at the market near his office, not in a loud way, not in a way that made her uncomfortable, but in the quiet, respectful way of a man who had been raised well. He sent a message through his cousin who knew Amara's neighbor, asking if he could come and see her family. Old-fashioned, sincere. When Oluchi found out, something shifted in her face. Not anger, something colder. Calculation. Over my dead body, she told Mr. Emeka that night, loud enough for Amara to hear from the kitchen. Tochi is older. Tochi goes first. No man is coming here for that girl before my daughter finds a husband. I will not allow it. Mr. Emeka said nothing, as usual. From that day, the cruelty doubled, then tripled. Amara's school books disappeared. She was accused of stealing things she had never touched. The chores started before dawn and ran past midnight. One evening, Oluchi slapped her twice across the face in front of Tochi, who watched and smiled the way people smile when they think they are winning. Amara was 18 now, tired in a way that age should not produce. But she kept going to school. She kept her grades. She held on to that dream with both hands. One Tuesday morning, Oluchi came to Amara with the news delivered like a present. She was almost cheerful about it. That should have been the first warning. You are going to the city, Lagos. I've arranged a job for you there. You'll be working for a woman, Madam Gold. She's a businesswoman. You'll be assisting her. It's good money. Amara looked at her mother. Something in her gut twisted. A small, quiet alarm that she could not name. But she looked around at the kitchen floor she slept on. She thought about the food she didn't eat. She thought about her father, who had not looked directly at her in months. She thought about Tochi's muddy shoes on her clean floor. Anything was better than this house. Okay, she said. She packed a small bag. She did not have much to pack. She stood at the door and looked down the hallway toward her father's room, waiting just for a moment for him to come out, to say something, anything, even just her name. The door stayed closed. Oluchi put her in a bus and handed her to a woman waiting at the other end of the line, a woman in a gold lace blouse and too much perfume. Madam Gold. She was short, thick-necked, with long acrylics painted deep red and a phone permanently attached to one hand. She looked Amara up and down like a market woman examines tomatoes, checking for damage, calculating value. Sit in front, she said. They drove into Lagos traffic. Amara pressed her face to the window and watched the city move. The noise, the heat, the people rushing in every direction like everyone was late for something important. She felt something loosen in her chest. She was out. She was free. She was going somewhere new. She almost smiled. She had absolutely no idea. Madam Gold's house was a compound behind a rusted gate in Lekki. When they walked in, Amara saw girls, 7, 8 of them, sitting in the parlor in various states of boredom, all young. Some looked even younger than Amara. None of them looked happy. They looked at her the way people look at someone who doesn't yet understand where they've arrived, with a mixture of pity and recognition. One girl, small-framed, tired eyes, caught Amara's gaze and shook her head slowly, just once. Amara didn't understand it yet. Madame Gold gave her a room shared with 2 other girls, told her to rest, and left. Amara sat on the edge of the bed and looked around. The room was plain, clean enough. She told herself it was fine. She told herself this was a fresh start. That night, Madame Gold knocked. "Get up, put on these clothes, and come downstairs. There is a lot of work tonight." She dropped a tiny sequin dress on the bed and walked out. Amara stared at it. "What kind of work?" she called after her. Madame Gold stopped, turned, smiled, not kindly. "Your mama dey owe me plenty money. She use you pay me. So you guys work the money and you go start this night." The room tilted. Amara's ears went hot. The sequin dress on the bed suddenly looked like a sentence. The girls in the parlor, the way the girl had shaken her head, the rusted gate, the compound, all of it crashed into her at once. "No," her voice was barely a sound. "No, ma, please. I will do anything else. I will clean. I will cook. I will sell things. Anything. Please. Not this. Please, ma." She was crying now, hands pressed together. Madame Gold looked at her for a long moment. Then she said, "You have 5 minutes. Come downstairs or have yourself to blame." She left. Amara did not go downstairs. What happened next is not something she would speak about easily for years. Madame Gold's men came, 2 of them, built like structures, faces like concrete. They were not sent to negotiate. When they were done, Amara lay on the floor and stared at the ceiling and made herself one promise. She was getting out. Not tonight, not tomorrow, but soon. Stay with me right now, because what this girl does next will change everything. Drop a comment. Did you see this coming? And please share this story. Someone out there needs to hear it today. Now, let's keep going. Amara did not break. That is the thing you need to understand about her. Madame Gold had seen many girls come through that compound. She had a theory that stubborn ones always broke, that it was just a matter of time, that everyone had a point where they give up. Amara was not breaking. She was calculating. Every day, while going through the motions of that compound, she was watching. What time did the gate open? When did the guard change? Who locked the back door and where did they keep the key? She noted that on Thursday nights, the main guard stepped outside at 10 o'clock to make a phone call. That call lasted exactly 15 minutes. She timed it 3 Thursdays in a row to be sure. She noted that the back fence had a gap, not large, but large enough for a thin body to squeeze through. She gave it 10 days, then she moved. On a Thursday night, when the compound was loud with activity and no one was watching the back, Amara tied her wrapper tight around her waist, left everything she came with, her bag, her clothes, everything, and she ran. Through the gap in the fence, into the unlit street, past a mama coat still open for late customers, past a mechanic workshop with a single bulb swinging in the breeze, past a group of men who shouted after her. She did not stop. She did not look back. She had no direction, no money, no plan, and nowhere to go. She could not go back to her father's house. That was never a home. But her legs kept moving because stopping was not an option. She was still running when the car came. The headlights caught her first, then the brakes, that sharp, stomach-dropping sound of tires against asphalt. The car stopped 1 foot in front of her. Amara stood frozen, chest heaving, waiting for the worst. The door opened. A man stepped out, tall, early 30s, dressed simply but well, the kind of simple that money makes effortless. He looked at her, wild-eyed, hair loose, feet bare because she had lost her slippers somewhere in the running, and he said, with genuine alarm, "Why are you running like NEPA is chasing you?" She burst into tears. He stood there, clearly unsure what to do with a crying teenager who had appeared in front of his car at 10:30 on a Thursday night. He looked around. He looked at her. He said, Okay, nobody is pursuing you right now. Just breathe." She breathed. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, someone was looking at her, really looking at her, and waiting for her to be okay. His name was Francis Adeyemi, businessman, construction and real estate, known in Lagos circles for being composed, calculated, and very difficult to rattle. Amara rattled him completely. He could not take her home. He was a sensible man, and she was a young woman he had met 40 seconds ago on a dark road. So he drove her to a hotel. Clean, safe, paid for a week, bought her a phone, and the next morning he came back with food and clothes and sat across from her in that small hotel room while she talked. She told him everything: her mother's death, her father's silence, Oluchi and Tochi, the kitchen mat, the floor she mopped 3 times, the food she didn't eat, the slaps, the school books that disappeared, the bus to Lagos, Madam Gold, the sequin dress, the compound full of young girls, all of it. Francis listened without interrupting once. He had grown up without much. His mother had cleaned offices to put him through school. He had a particular deep hatred for people who preyed on those with nothing, the kind of hatred that does not shout but moves. By the time Amara finished talking, his jaw was set in a way that people who knew him would have recognized immediately. "They will pay," he said, not dramatically, not loudly, the way a man states a fact he has already decided is true. He had a rule about himself. He didn't fix people's problems for them. He gave people tools to fix their own. But sitting across from this girl with the calm, exhausted eyes, this girl who had survived things that would have broken most adults, he made an exception. Some situations don't need tools. They need someone to show up and refuse to look away. He called his assistant that same night. He watched Amara eat, really eat, no one watching over her shoulder, no leftovers, no pot bottom, and something hardened in his chest that he recognized as useful anger, the kind he knew exactly how to work with. He made calls that evening. By the next morning, a private investigator was already parked outside Madam Gold's compound. Over the following weeks, the evidence built like a dam filling with water. Photographs, testimonials from girls who had escaped before Amara, financial records, phone logs, names of the men Madam Gold served, the drugs she moved through her network using those same young girls as carriers. She was not just trafficking bodies. She was a full operation, and Francis had it all on paper.
Back in Enugu, Oluchi was going about her life with the ease of a woman who believed she had solved a problem. Amara was gone. Tochi had the room. The house was quiet. Her husband was compliant. Everything was exactly as she had arranged it. Then the knock came. A man appeared at the door. Not a friendly knock, not a neighbor, a representative of Madam Gold, standing at the gate with the energy of someone delivering a bill that was long overdue. "The girl has run away," he said. "If she's not found, Madame says she will take your own daughter instead. The debt must be paid." Oluchi's face changed. Tochi, who had spent the past months painting her nails and laughing at Amara's suffering, suddenly understood what her mother had done. She locked herself in the room, Amara's old room, and refused to come out. She sat on that bed and thought about every time she had smiled while Amara was being slapped, every time she had walked across the clean floor in muddy shoes, every time she had eaten first while Amara waited. It did not feel like winning anymore. Oluchi panicked. She called people. She made promises she could not keep. She told her husband they needed to find Amara, as if Amara was a missing item and not a human being she had sold. Mr. Emeka, who had watched everything and said nothing for 3 years, discovered that his silence was no longer a safe place to live. He panicked privately, which was very on brand for him. He did not call the police. He did not do anything useful. He just sat in his sitting room in his house slippers and stared at the wall. Meanwhile, Francis was not panicking. Francis was working. He had his evidence packaged, organized, and covered with a lawyer's letter. He handed it to a senior officer at the EFCC with whom he had a professional relationship. Then, he made a second call to someone at the police commissioner's level. Then a third call to a journalist he trusted completely. He was thorough, he was calm, and he was done. The raid on Madam Gold's compound was scheduled for a Wednesday afternoon. Oluchi did not know this. Mr. Emeka did not know this. Madam Gold did not know this. They were all still running their own plans, making their own calculations, believing they were in control, while the net that Francis had spent weeks weaving was already in the air above them, falling slowly, perfectly, toward everything they had built on the suffering of a girl who had done nothing wrong. God was not asleep. He had just been waiting for the right Wednesday. Wednesday came like any other day. The sun was out, Lagos was loud, Madam Gold was in her parlor, phone in hand, acrylics freshly done, conducting business as usual. Her girls were in their rooms, her guards were at their posts. Everything was normal. Then the vehicles arrived. 3 of them, moving fast, pulling up to the rusted gate with the kind of authority that does not knock and wait. Officers poured out, EFCC, police, and one journalist who had been tipped off and was already raising a camera before the gate was fully open. Madam Gold heard the commotion and stood up.
She was still standing when they walked through her door. She was arrested in her gold lace blouse, mid-phone call, phone still pressed to her ear. The officer who cuffed her did it without ceremony. She was walked out of her own gate in handcuffs while the journalist's camera caught every step. 8 girls were freed from that compound. 8. The drugs were found in the third room, packaged, labeled, ready for movement. Her 4 security men were arrested on the spot. The financial records Francis had gathered matched exactly what the officers found on the premises. By evening, Madame Gold's face was on the news. 2 days later, the knock came at a different door. Mr. Emeka Okafor opened it in his house slippers and found officers standing on the step he had swept every morning for 20 years. He looked at them with the expression of a man who had always believed that staying quiet was the same as staying safe. It was not. He and Oluchi were charged with child trafficking, specifically the sale of a minor for purposes of sexual exploitation and forced labor. Oluchi was additionally charged with child abuse and domestic endangerment. The evidence was clear and it was overwhelming. Phone records, the money transferred from Madame Gold's account to Oluchi's, witnesses who confirmed what Amara had endured in that house. Oluchi was taken out of the house she had taken over, past the bedroom she had given her daughter, past the kitchen where she had made a child sleep on a mat, past the front door she had pushed Amara out of with a smile. She did not look back. Tochi watched from the window. The courtroom on Judgment Day was full. Journalists, NGO workers, several of the girls from Madame Gold's compound who had agreed to testify and now sat in the gallery with the careful stillness of people who had learnt, at great cost, that the world could be dangerous and occasionally, just occasionally, fair. Amara sat beside Francis and his lawyer. When it was her turn, she stood and read her testimony aloud. Her voice was steady. She did not rush. She did not stumble. She had done her crying. All of it, in a hotel room, in a school dormitory, in the quiet of early mornings when nobody was watching. She had nothing left to cry. She looked at her father once in the middle of the testimony. He looked away first. Oluchi had spent the entire trial performing remorse, daubing her eyes, sighing heavily, wearing subdued colors, looking at the judge with an expression she had clearly rehearsed. The day the sentence was read, the daubing stopped. She stared at Amara across the courtroom with an expression that had nothing to do with regret. Amara met her gaze and held it, steady as stone, calm as water. Oluchi looked away first. That was enough. The verdicts came one after the other. Madame Gold, life sentence. The charge sheet was long. Child trafficking, drug trafficking, procurement for sexual exploitation, conspiracy. The judge read it without expression. Mr. Emeka and Oluchi, 10 years each. Outside the courthouse, in the afternoon sun, Amara sat quietly for a long time. Francis sat beside her and said nothing because he understood that some silences are necessary. "I don't feel how I thought I'd feel," she said eventually. "How did you think you'd feel?" She thought about it. "Victorious, but I just feel tired." "That's okay," he said. "You can be victorious tomorrow. Rest today." She nodded. The sun was warm. The street outside the courthouse was loud with ordinary life. Okadas, hawkers, someone arguing about change. The world had not stopped for any of this. It had kept moving the way it always does. But something had shifted, permanently, in the right direction. Tochi was never charged. Legally, she had been a bystander. She had not made the calls, signed the agreements, or collected the money. The law looked at her and saw a teenager who benefited from cruelty without technically committing it. The law was not wrong, but it was not the whole story either. Tochi inherited the house when her mother went to prison. She sold it quickly because she wanted nothing to do with it and moved into a life that went from one man to the next, always chasing something she could never quite name. She was looking for the feeling of winning. She had spent so many years watching Amara suffer and calling it victory that she had never learned what real winning actually felt like. The lifestyle caught up with her within 2 years. She contracted a disease that her recklessness had made inevitable. She did not recover. She was 21 years old. There is no celebration in that, no satisfaction. Just the quiet, heavy truth that cruelty has a cost, and sometimes the person who pays it is not the one you expect. Francis paid her school fees. He set up a small account in her name, not a fortune, but enough to stand on. He found her a place to stay with a family friend, a woman named Mrs. Ezi, who was warm and loud and laughed at meal times, and who made sure Amara ate first. Always first. Every time. The first week, Amara kept waiting for the catch, for the condition, for the moment when the kindness would flip into something else. She had learned through hard experience that good things came with hidden prices. But Mrs. Ezi just kept feeding her, and Francis just kept showing up, not to manage her, not to control her, but to check in, to ask how school was going, to bring books she mentioned once and probably thought he had forgotten. He had not forgotten. Amara studied the way people study when they have decided, quietly and completely, that they will build everything back with their own hands. She was not the top of her class immediately. She had gaps, years of disruption, nights she had spent mopping floors instead of reading. But she worked. She asked questions. She stayed late. She went back to the beginning of everything she had missed and rebuilt her foundation brick by brick. She became a nurse. A good one. The kind that patients ask for by name. The kind that remembers what you told her last week and asks about it this week. The kind that has learned from personal experience that the most important thing you can give a person who is suffering is the simple, radical act of staying in the room. On the day she received her certificate, Francis was in the audience. When her name was called and she walked across that stage, the hall gave polite, seated applause, the kind of graduation halls always produce, measured and proper. Francis stood up. He stood up in the middle of all that polite seated applause and clapped like a man who had been waiting for this moment for years, loud, unashamed, completely unbothered by the people turning to look at him. Amara looked out from the stage and saw him standing. She laughed. Not a polite laugh, not a careful laugh, a real one, full and sudden and free, the kind she had not heard from herself in what felt like a very long time. There is a nurse working in Lagos today with a certificate on her wall and a name badge on her chest and a way of sitting with patients that makes them feel, without her saying a single word, that they are going to be okay. She wakes up early. She eats breakfast, real breakfast, made in a real kitchen at a real table. She drives herself to work in a car she bought with her own salary. Not a big car, but hers. She does not talk about her past often, but sometimes when a young girl comes into the ward, frightened, alone, not sure who to trust, she pulls a chair close and sits down and says, "I'm here. Tell me what happened." She does not say the rest. She does not need to. Here is what this story is really about. A woman tried to destroy a girl's life. She planned it, she executed it, she collected money for it and went home and cooked dinner. And God watched all of it. He watched the kitchen floor, he watched the sequin dress, he watched the rusted gate, he watched barefoot running. And then, at exactly the right moment, on exactly the right Thursday night, he put a car in the road. The stepmother thought she had won. She had not won. She had only started the clock. If this story moved you, share it right now with someone who needs to be reminded that their story is not over. Subscribe to Tales by Alicia and drop one word in the comments that describes Amara. Just one word. I want to see what you say. This has been Tales by Alicia. And remember, God is never asleep. He is just waiting for the right moment.